Turn your mics on.
Oh.
All the way on the back, it needs to go. Yeah.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you so much for joining us here tonight at OVS. I will turn it over for our roll call to Ms. Stewart, please.
All right. President Wilson.
Here.
Vice President McIntyre.
Here.
Treasurer Campbell Voitel.
I am here.
Trustee Mazurek.
Here.
Trustee Meyer.
Hello.
Trustee Prescott.
Hi, everyone.
And Secretary Stewart here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We're all here. I also want to acknowledge a couple of folks that are in the audience. We just had an election last week. Thank you everyone who voted in that, and thank you for everyone that raised their hand to volunteer for the board and for any sort of public service. So I want to thank all 7 candidates that ran, and also congratulate the 4 that did win seats. We'll have Ms. Lisa McIntyre, our vice president, joining again next year. Congratulations. We also have Ron Frazier, Jenna Mabry in the audience tonight. I want to congratulating Meredith Maurer, and thanking Philip Deloche and Priya Marwa and Eric Toski for raising their hands and running great campaigns and hearing that call to serve and standing up and raising their hands. So thank you to them for that. That will bring us to any other comments before we get into our agenda. All right, that will bring us to number 4 on our agenda. I'll turn it over to our Vice President, Ms. McIntyre, please.
Okay, I'd like to bring forth motion 40 that the agenda be adopted as presented. Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Dr. Campbell Voitel. Any discussion about our agenda? Questions? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our agenda passes, and that brings us to our consent resolutions. I'll hand it over again to our Vice President, please.
Okay, I'd like to bring forth motion 41 that the board accept the consent agenda items for approval as presented. This includes 5A, minutes of the October 22nd, 2024 Board of Education meeting, 5B, overnight and or out-of-state field trip request. That includes B1, NHS Girls Tennis State Tournament in Grand Rapids, Michigan from May 29th through the 31st, 2025. B2, NHS Girls Tennis Tournament in Holland, Michigan from May 2nd through the 3rd, 2025. B3, NHS Choir Tour in Nashville, Tennessee from May 23rd to the 27th, 2025. B4, NHS Orchestra Performance in Orlando, Florida from March 22nd through the 25th, 2025. And C, bill warrants totaling $4,612,771.54. Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Ms. Prescott. Before we vote, just so folks in the audience and in the public know, these are items, these consent resolution items are ones that we have discussed in previous subcommittee meetings, or we have had a chance to vet prior to the meeting tonight. As you can see, we have minutes of prior meetings and some great field trips and some things, bill warrants that we've discussed in things like finance subcommittee. Just a little color around those. So any questions on our consent resolutions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so our consent resolutions passed. That brings us to our communications. Ms. Stewart, please, our secretary.
All right. We've received emails to our board email address, npsboe@northvilleschools.org. We've also received the Northville Youth Network Program Report for October 2024.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Any comments, questions?
I know that every month we seem to be repeating this, and honestly, I once again cannot overstate how thankful we are for the Northville Youth Network. But the numbers this month,
It's a lot.
it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's just hard to look at because you know that's a family, that's a student, and kid can't not be thinking of what they're going through. And I'm so glad that we have this for our families, but it just highlights something that we keep saying over and over again, which is the importance of mental health and having resources for our students. So I don't know if anyone else had anything else they wanted to highlight out of that, but I couldn't look at that number of 30 and It just seems to be going up every month, and relative to last year, it's very concerning.
I had the same reaction, and I thought Northville Youth Network has 2 part-time employees that are working to care for families and kids and refer people to services. So I'm just really grateful for both of them for just their ongoing hard work. That it sounds like the waters are rising. So I hope that funding sources are also allocated for those additional needs for their support, for them to be able to provide those services. I really liked the video that I saw about the overbooked with Northville Youth Network. I think it's Thursday night. I've had multiple people reach out to me like, are you going? Is it a good book? What do you say about it? So I'm excited that maybe the community of parents is also looking to support each other and find different ways to, care for our kids.
Just to comment, I could maybe ask for a minor change in the report going forward. You know how you get your gas bill? It gives you kind of like a 12-month rolling average, but it always gives you 12 months last year, so we can see kind of where it was. Mm-hmm. It might be nice to have this report be a 12-month rolling average where, like, we saw October of this year, but we also saw October of last year, because in general, we always know August is 0 because there's no kids at school.
It's not 0 though. Yeah. That's the scary thing.
Well, it's low.
I know it is low,
and we know it grows. Yeah. In September and it grows a little bit October. That's actually not an unusual trend. Mm-hmm. The numbers are a little bit bigger, but it might be easier to see that stuff if we saw a 12-month rolling average where, like, for example, this one we also saw last October. So just a suggestion, and because sometimes, there is kind of a rolling trend what happens, so it going up isn't necessarily a surprise. That's almost an annual thing, but when you can start to see it went up as a trend, but the number was, X bigger than what it was a year ago, that tells you something even more. So just a suggestion, maybe we can take it back.
Yep.
Yeah, school calendar.
Yeah.
Rhythms. Yep, good point.
That's helpful.
Good suggestion. All right. Can we pass that on to NYN? Yeah.
No.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that will bring us to our superintendent report, I believe.
All right. So first and foremost, I want to welcome Lena into our world. Mr. Kling and his wife Karen, mostly Karen, brought us Lena last week, and I can assure you that after about 6 weeks or so, Big R will mellow out. It's just probably a little jealousy from the 2-year-old in the house there. The attention's not all his, but thank you for being here, and probably 800 milligrams of caffeine. We appreciate it. Many of us have been there, and you're hanging in there. I want to read an email right now that came from last week. We haven't seen each other in a bit, but so we did a podcast and we talked about, Renee Hearn brought like the launch places that our NHS aerospace team might go to, and we were talking about the different places in the country. So just an update for you. Also, if you're interested in, I've been able to do 3 years of podcasts, and I did one with these young men from the Aerospace Club. It was so cool. And the neat thing about it is, even the young man who was like the most into it knew nothing about rockets a year ago. And if you would have listened to him, or when you do listen to him, you're going to think this kid's been bathing in it his whole life, but it just goes to show the beauty of learning. So the NHS aerospace team members crushed it in their first official design review with the NASA engineering panel. 9 students presented their preliminary design review to a panel of 6 engineers, and then had to field all technical and safety questions. Some of the feedback included that they appreciated the high level of professionalism and everything the students submitted, that the students were better prepared than quite a number of university teams, and that their work was overall outstanding. And it goes on to say thank you, Evan and Andrew, team, for the tech equipment support on a crazy PDA conference day. And that's something I hear. I'd like to speak about my Google a little bit here in a second too. So next up, we actually have to build and fly these things. So we'll keep you updated. It was really neat. And Silver Springs PTSA today, I want to thank them for having me, and it was really germane to the conversation we just had around NYN. So at the first meeting that the Silver Springs PTSA had, the president asked, what would you like to hear about? What would you like to learn about? There were no prompts. It was a simple open-ended question. And the majority of the 40 people who were there chose mental health and well-being. So I went there today and spoke a little bit. Most importantly, I think I used the RP practices and just listened to what concerns are driving. Why would so many people write that down? I think empirically, as you pointed out, you can see that number growing and occurring there. And to your point, each one of those students involves a family, mom, dad, caregiver that is desperately trying to figure out how to help the person they love. It's real. I believe as a community, this is something that collectively we can help, and we need to. I passed around the book that will be at Overbooked, Never Enough, and almost didn't make it back to me because I saw one person trying to put it in their satchel. I'm like, no, you can order it or go to Barnes & Noble. There it is. Or you can steal it from Miss Stewart.
No, I'm not done yet.
All right,
So you
sorry.
can't have
Because
it
that's
until I
there.
look
And I
at it.
assured everyone at Overbooked, it's okay.
It's all right.
You don't even have to read the book.
Yeah.
They do such a great job,
Yeah.
and you'll get something out of it. Last week, I was at DC for, you'll notice I'm drinking out of my Moraine cup because Moraine earned blue ribbon status from the U.S. Department of Education. It was, that's a testament to, gosh, everybody before and now. And, I have to admit, before I'd been to something like that, I didn't really realize the true sense of gravity and joy of it. I think what was very poignant is where the event was held was also a veterans symposium of veterans from World War II. So they have men and women who are getting, videoed and things like that because every day the number gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And it just hit me. Here I am in a place that is just filled with public servants, people who chose to give their lives in service of our country. And it hit hard. And DC is a powerful, powerful place. And I had no idea that Mr. Ryman had actually led 10 kid trips to DC in his past teaching life. So it was like having a tour guide as well. He's like, oh yeah, we can go there. That's where that's at. And so I want to thank the board, former boards, obviously the Colt team, the parents. Hopefully we brought some of that energy back, and incredibly proud of Moraine for that honor. And I believe Ammerman received that honor a bit ago as well. Any senior folks on the board remember that one? Maybe it was during COVID and it wasn't as big of a,
Let's see the plaque.
in a thing. So we'll take a look at that. And then finally, well, first, Lindsay, thank you for saying congratulations to the folks, and a huge thank you for anyone willing to run in a climate that is exceptionally difficult. It has become too painful, frankly, too painful to run for public office, and it shouldn't be. Some of you might argue some of the length in our meetings is painful enough that you don't need to worry about going on and seeing everything that whatever people are saying and postulating. And I certainly hope that there's a moment that we can come back to understand that we're all Americans who care for, what'd you see in the board self-eval? What were your 7s on? Your 707s were, are decisions being made for kids? Yes. Hopefully you all noted that. Like those pieces, the parts that are the ethos of this board and something you should all be very proud of, frankly. Having been in public education for 33 years, and I think a keen observer, especially of the past 8 or 9 in local politics, seeing communities devolve that don't need to. You all fought against that, and really, we will be better for it. We will be better for it. So thank you for that. And then I asked Sarah to help me with this next one. I'll do the first part. So it's been a crazy, I hope everyone just pinch themselves if they want to. I have never served a community that's had a run athletically like this community. I mean, let's see, baseball in the spring, state championship, that's kind of a big deal. Girls golf, big deal. Cross country, 3-peat, big deal. Our varsity competitive dance first in Division I in jazz dance, second hip hop at the UDA regionals recently, and then girls swim and dive, Miss Prescott. I think you've probably seen one or two swim or dive events in your life. Tell us about what happened.
Yeah, I mean, the girls did great. They had a really tough competitor in Pioneer. I think they have a three-peat or so. They have a couple of Olympians that have come out of Pioneer. It's the only meet they didn't win. But yeah, these girls started in August. They get there at 5:30 in the morning. The parents make them breakfast every morning. They practice. The commitment on the team is really great. New coach. This year, he's been the boys coach for a long time, but the girls were able to do some just really, really great swims, just, eye-popping times that they achieved, and they got third in the state. And so, just really, really excited for them. I know the entire swim community is really, really grateful for the timing equipment. Every time I go in there, I look up at the board, it would blink out, you're there for 3 hours to see a minute and a half or a 30-second or a 20-second race. Oh. And you don't know if your kid dropped a second. It's like a big, big deal, So that was $55,000. And every time I go there, I think that was $55,000 and it makes me gasp. And yet everybody's been really grateful. The pool's coming under some construction. We've got some bond money coming to that too. Yep. That place is used from dark to dark. There's kids over there right now, the middle schools. So anyway, the girls had a great run, and congratulations to them. My daughter's friend was one of the amazing golfers that are like freshmen and sophomores, some of them. So we're going to have a great...
It's stunning. I mean, by the 9th hole of the first day, they were already ahead by like 20 strokes. I mean, it's soul crushing if you're an opponent.
They're unstoppable.
And the fact that our girls swim and dive, I mean, Pioneer has been a genuine monster of the pool for as long as I remember. The fact that we won a district championship, they had that success. But I think any of you who have gotten to see we can't sit in math class with them. We can't sit in whatever. But when they're part of fine arts or athletics and you're able to see your kid do something that makes them happy, like just joy, happy. I don't care if it's art, rowing, hockey, what have you. That's when it kind of comes together. And it's one of those things that I will always tell younger parents that it is really the gift of being a parent. That making those type of events and seeing your kid happy doing that, we can't all walk in. Luckily, I can't anymore, but walk in and see your kid in a classroom, but you can certainly see them doing something they love to do. And that's what I think makes our community public schools, frankly, amazing. With that said, Aaron, you want to do just a quick piece on my Google? The feedback I received on it was out of this world.
We had an opportunity to collaborate with John Solwash from Solwash Ventures, who runs my Google conference, has for the last 11 years. He presented an opportunity for us to host it here at Northville High School, which meant that all of our teachers would get to attend. So last week we had 52 school districts represented at Northville High School, but all 400 of our classroom teachers were able to attend a full day with the keynote in the morning from a teacher at Cedar Springs High School, and then a full day of training on all the AI tools as well as all of the technology that is available. There were presenters from across the state. There were presenters from our own staff as well, including the farthest away came from Oslo, Norway, to train some of our teachers. I know, crazy. But all across the country who came here to educate people on the tools and the way in which AI and Google can be used to push education forward. So we're excited to have that opportunity. It's not something that you get to do very often, but as a result of hosting here, our teachers were able to attend, which is really fantastic.
What I've heard, eminently practical pieces that teachers, administrators could use the next day or even that moment. And so thank you for bringing that, for bird dogging it, for making it happen with your team. I'm grateful for that. That's it, President Wilson, from my end.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that great report. So this will bring us to our first, let me just say, make sure I'm doing this right. First of two opportunities, right, tonight? All right, first of two opportunities tonight for public comment. You have 3 minutes. Bring your cards up if you haven't already. I do have the first one here. Mr. Jacobs, Chris Jacobs, if you want to come on up to the podium, you'll have 3 minutes. Many of us know, but if you don't mind, for the audience, just give a quick sort of explanation of your connections to the district, and then We'll give you
I'm
3
Chris
minutes.
Jacobs. I'm a Northville lifer, lack of a better term. Dr. Roberts, also my thunder, I just want to come in tonight, post-election, and say thank you to members of the board who are leaving and ending your term. Thank you for all your work and support for the community and for our schools as teachers. The time you've spent, money of you multiple terms to help our schools. To some of the new members who are here tonight, welcome, and we hope to have a good partnership with you as well. It is, as an AP Gov and AP US history teacher, which some of you know, every year in the classroom right now, it feels like 10 are passing by. It is a brutal slog, to say the least. So I thank you for your support, the classroom teachers, and, there's obviously interesting things that are coming at the federal level, potentially as it relates to education. So the commitment we have at our community public schools are very important. So I thank you for your effort and your time. That's it. Just thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, are we going to close public comment? Thank you, Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that would bring us to our new teacher hire, agenda item number 9, Mr. Sumner, I believe.
Well,
Yes, Verna, yep.
I would bring forward motion 42, that the board award a 1-year prorated probationary NEA contract to Linda Boulis for the 24-25 school year as presented.
Support. Oh,
All
support.
right, I heard a whisper.
I know.
So we have a motion properly presented by Ms. Meyer, sorry to cut you off there originally, supported by Ms. Stewart. And now, how about a little introduction, please, Mr. Sumner?
Thank you, President Wilson. Yes, happy to recommend Linda Boulis this evening. I think Linda, yep, she's there she is. I thought I saw her sneak in. Linda's been a special education teacher at Canton High School for cognitively impaired students since January of 2022. She holds her bachelor's degree in special education from Eastern Michigan and also holds a master's degree in public health from CMU. Our interview team was impressed by Linda's educational background as well as her passion and heart for supporting students, especially those who may experience struggles during their educational journey. Both her principal and special education supervisor discussed how Linda goes above and beyond for students and designs detail-oriented lessons that seek to meet and address student needs. Linda's disposition and overall enthusiasm and characteristics that have helped her connect with students in Plymouth Canton will certainly serve her no differently here in a resource room position at Hillside Middle School as she seeks to serve and support students here in Northville.
Awesome, all right, any questions, comments? Yeah.
Oh, I had to give her a thumbs up because I think an MPH is a great graduate degree for any major, including special ed. So we have a shared love of public health. So anyway, and it gives you data and analytics to understand, exactly, what you're involved in for your true career, which is special ed. So
yeah. Definitely a well-rounded degree that
yeah.
opens me up to a lot of opportunities and a lot of knowledge that can apply really anywhere.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's awesome. It's beautiful. So
thank you.
bravo.
Well, I am a resource room teacher in Plymouth Canton, so even though we are stealing her from. I know you did, not a woman. Welcome, we're glad to have you.
Yes, welcome.
All right, shall we make it official and vote and welcome Ms. Boulis officially to Hillside? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, welcome aboard. Welcome to Hillside.
Appreciate it. Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Really tired. Cold looks tired.
Oh, thank you. Nice to meet you. Hi, nice to meet you.
All right, that brings us to number 10 on our agenda, our audit report. I'll hand it over to our treasurer, please.
Okay, so I don't know if I'm breaking protocol, but I was just going to make a comment that Plant Moran provided us with our audit of our budget at the 10/22/24 regular board meeting, and we tabled it because we wanted to have sufficient time to consider and to reflect, and therefore we have it on our agenda tonight. So That's one of the things that we do to respond to those kinds of things that we just talked about as an effective board. So I am happy and pleased tonight to bring motion 43 that the board approve the 23-24 audit report as presented.
Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Dr. Campbell Boytel and supported by Ms. Prescott. Any comments, questions? We talked about this in relative depth a few weeks back.
Yeah, I really appreciate being able to table it, due to, obvious reasons, it got to us right at the last minute and none of us really had a chance to delve into it. So I really appreciate having the time to really give it the attention that it needs. So.
Good.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I was the only one that I had a break and I was able to read it, so
I
I was the only one who read it at the time, so it's important to bring it back, make sure everybody's comfortable.
Yeah, I will just, without repeating that, I will just say that also gave me the opportunity because I had planned to be at the meeting and kept saying I'm going to be later and later, and I just never could make it because of a work commitment. But I did review your all comments and listen to the thing, and so I also was able to catch up because of it. And obviously, the financial position is a positive here for us. So, the only thing I would else just carry forward from that meeting is the discussion of a plan for a budget amendment in April-ish timeframe, which is a normal thing we do. So everything looks great.
Yeah, I wondered a little bit about, and I guess it doesn't have to be, obviously we would need to talk about it in this meeting, but I appreciated just the recommendation and observation that our food services fund is a little over. And so I wonder, maybe that's something you guys have talked about, how we could bring that down, or.
Well, actually, if in finance, we've talked about that at Meads Mill. One of the issues that we're doing is we rebuild the kitchen. We're actually using some of that excess money purposely to bring that down. And so we have talked about in the past, but if you want to add any other topics to that.
Yeah, if Devin, you're on, just as you're bridging this transition.
Yeah, that's something we have constant communication on, especially with Carrie in food service. I'm actually meeting with her this week on Friday, again, to talk about ways that we can spend that down because we are required to keep it at a certain level. So the state does give you some time and you're able to kind of roll that fund balance over. But we used bond projects as an opportunity to use those funds as well as other investments in the fund. So, but it's a constant process, I guess.
Yeah.
But Meads definitely was one of the target ones because we talked about at the time about we had this excess funds and this allowed us to actually make a better arrangement in newer equipment and that. So we're actually going to use that. We're going to use Meads to bring us down under the limit so that we'll be in compliance. But he's absolutely right. We have time. They give you a amount of time to do that. So that's going to be brought down and will be implemented at Meads. Or a chunk of it. We will definitely still have money
Yeah, I was
left
going
over.
to say, in addition to that.
Yeah.
Well, we
are thoughtful about how we're doing that, which I know we will be. I just wanted to kind of raise that.
Oh, no, that's good. Also, we have we're building an NPR at Ammerman, so who knows, if we have any extra slosh around, we could spend it at the new cafeteria at Ammerman, who knows. That's just the freelance people, don't take it in any direction.
One of the things to just keep in mind for as the New Year's come at you is that is running so hot and running up numbers so fast because of the state paying for breakfast and lunches. And so the amount per meal that we can sort of bank essentially is artificially high these last 2 years compared to other. Now, I will say that the whole time I've been on this board, that fund has run into the black, and I think we use some of its money to build this building.
Yes.
I mean, like, we've dissipated it other ways.
We bought a food service. We replaced a food service truck with the excess funds in the past. So we have a new truck.
It runs to the black, which is great, but it's hypercharged right now. And if you don't see those free meals continuing, it won't be as much. One thought that I've, sort of put out there and raised is, can we look at, to Dr. Weber's point in the Silver Springs community, food, nutrition, how that's feeding into wellness and well-being. Maybe that's a good place to, spend some of that food-related money.
Right. I have the same thought.
Interesting that you bring that up. So I have to say that I'm not fully informed, although I became aware of this as an Ammerman family, that we're giving bags of food for kids who are in high needs for weekend meals. Is that happening district-wide? I'm sure it is if it's happening.
It's been happening for years.
Has it?
It's a charity that's not run through food service.
Oh, it's not. Okay, it's
Called
not.
Blessings in a Backpack. It's run by a parent in the district who works with the charity organization.
Oh, okay.
During COVID, it was happening as a funded thing, I think, right? I mean, there was like ways to like get food over the weekend
during COVID, they had you come by and actually pick up the meals. But that was only for a
Okay, all right, well, that clarifies.
I mean, the other thing is too, like if you're not in the elementary school, check out what I'm talking about. I think I circulated a menu. It is not easy to get kids to eat the fruits and vegetables. I love all myself, so.
Right.
All right, any other questions on our audit report? All right, all those in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, great work on that. That brings us to number 11 on our agenda, our district goals adoption. I'll turn it over to Dr. Campbell-Boytel again.
Okay, so just because I'm in the groove, I'm going to acknowledge that we have discussed the district goals with the 24-25 focus areas now, along with the district achievement data at multiple meetings, and we reviewed and discussed them in detail, and now we have the 24-25 updated focus areas that have been refined. So I am pleased to be able to bring motion 44 that the board affirm the 2020 through 2025 district goals and the specific focus areas for 24-25 as presented. Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Dr. Campbell-Boytel and supported by Ms. McIntyre. Any questions, comments? We did go through this. We did our roundtable several weeks ago. Was it that same meeting, the 22nd? No, it couldn't have been.
Before.
Well, it was some weeks ago.
Yeah, it was before, September 24th and October 15th. Well, we had district achievement data on September 24th and subsequent meetings after that. And then October 15th was when we did the review and discuss and update this year's focus areas.
Gotcha.
So can I we did, and this isn't going to be a comment about blue because this is something that has been baked in for years. And did I feel really sheepish not to know this because like people who've been on the board much less time got it better, and I just never really totally understood the 60% achievement projected growth piece.
Oh, yeah.
From K to 8. Okay, so nobody's perfect, right? I do my best, but it never sunk into my brain that that's grouping all the kindergartners with all the 8th graders and all the firsties with the, in one big group. Because I've learned so much from Aaron and the team, I understand that it's easier to hit growth K2, and we're knocking it out of the park. We're hitting like amazing growth in K2. And so just food for thought because this is the end of the cycle and not necessarily for this year, but as you go forward, I do question now that I understand it better. I read this and always thought, okay, every grade, we want you to be doing 60%. It's hard for me when I know the test may be easier to kind of get that growth early on to justify maybe some lower numbers. No one will be surprised to hear me say in the middle school, because it's average. So maybe just a thought to think about subgroups or how you want to address that, because that to me is something that I feel a little sheepish that I didn't better grapple with.
Meaning that you'd like to see like number A be broken
Seven
into
A maybe, or
like 2A,
B, 2A, or A, yeah, the
Gonna be-
60% growth ideas.
like broken into subgroups.
Well, and maybe it's not fair, right, at that point. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I'm not sure how I feel about knowing that our kindergarten or first grade is doing 90% are getting it, and our 8th grade, 40% are getting it, and are we good with that? Like, is that really in line with our idea that each kid should be judged on their own instead of on a curve with everybody,
Mm-hmm.
So we are paying attention to those kids
Oh, yeah.
in the middle school. So it's not like it's obscuring.
No, we're seeing the data for sure.
We're seeing the data. One of the things that go through my mind because you brought it up at, the earlier meeting and it caused me to go back and think about it too. And I think that was news for me also. But when we look at the accountabilities, our accountabilities are at a district level. Right? We're not accountable. We hold our superintendent accountable for district level data. Right? We hold ourselves accountable for every child. There's no doubt about it. But I just wonder if that's why the district goals are written at a district level.
But they're broken, they're not K-12, they're K-8 and 9-12.
Yeah.
I guess I would just
That's a good
say,
point.
yeah, that same concept, I could flip around and say, I want the 8th grade to be judged on the 8th grade district-wide and not paid less attention to because the kindergarten is doing so great. And I'm picking I don't mean any particular grade, I'm just saying like,
No, but
pick
I
third
think
grade
the
and fifth
lower
grade or
L
whatever.
does kind of mask the upper and into middle school. It does kind of hide it. And I'm not saying we're hiding anything, so maybe I'm phrasing that really badly. But it does, because their growth kind of, you can't see a clearer picture. I think it would give a clearer picture if it was spread out.
You can slice data lots of different ways, and it's just a suggestion to just maybe think about this and how not going to be here, but like, is that how you want it to be? Because I didn't really look at it that way, and when it's broken out for us on the chart, it's not
right,
like lumped together. It's like, oh, 8th grade, is it this? And, so
Yeah.
just something to think about.
All right, good call out. Anything else? Any other questions?
Just a comment again, we went through this, we did a roundtable, we all had a chance to talk to every single one of the groups, and so this really is not a rewrite, but a tweaking of the objectives based on our input. And one thing I'd ask is there any one area that you had to make anything that you made tweak on that would be significant to remind us about? Because
Since the last meeting, Jim?
yeah. This was all and you gave us a summary at that time of our input. So I just wanted to make sure there was okay, without having read this in detail again, was there anything that was significant, that bring us up about, or is it just really an incorporation of all our inputs?
Probably made the most because there was some kind of prioritization and consolidation. So I don't know if you want to.
Yep. So one of the suggestions for the special services focus was to prioritize the items because it covers a broader range. And some of the items, I did take another look at it and go through it with Molly and JD, and it is true. Some of those goals were not really priority goals for this year. They had been in the past, and we want to continue them, but they weren't necessarily priorities for this year. So we did have to kind of have a more critical conversation about what are the priority items for this year. And then just in general, I think you would see the restorative practices staff we've been doing, but it's added in. That was more in the Barbie section, but I'm just kind of covering it since the question's asked. And then AI, of course, was added. To me, that was the most significant things. But Aaron, did you?
Well, nothing was added since your review for AI. It was just AI is new this year for our goal document in general.
So this is so you'll be, presumably, tell me if I'm wrong, but next year you'll be putting a lot of work into the next 5-year plan. right? I mean, that sounds, that would be a lot of work, right? I've never seen it. You probably have.
In 5 years.
Yeah.
No, yeah, so we're at the
It's
end of
not
our
a
5-year
rolling
plan.
is the point, right?
We're at the end of our 5-year
Yeah.
plan, where to achieve your total 5-year plan, each year you focus on a step along the way to get there. And so next year's board is going to basically have a role working with the Cole team to set up the, between 25 and 2030. Where are we going to, so it's a much bigger effort of thinking long-term and thinking strategically about where we need to be and how we're going to think about things for 5 years. So,
Right.
good.
I know, yay, which is why we've had a variety of consultants come and before the board, as Cole, you have brought to us to consider how that data that's going to justify that strategic plan is going to be collected and analyzed, and what kind of long-range goals are reasonable and feasible and within our purview.
I had to take an educator survey from Wayne Risa, and guess who was doing the survey? Hanover.
Oh, okay. On behalf of Wayne Risa.
Yes.
Okay.
They're busy people over there.
All right, well, good luck with that next year. That's going to be a big project, I think. It sounds like it.
You're always welcome to come back and help.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Why are you saying good luck with that?
Like Professor Emeritus, Board Member Emeritus.
Good luck with that.
Right.
I'm gonna have a committee of former board members.
Right.
That'll be a good goal, right?
Oh, God.
I can give you Ann Kalis. She's great at keeping
I
things
thought she
going.
moved to
What were those two
Arizona.
guys?
Yeah, you can get them on
Those
Zoom.
two guys in the Muppets who would stay up.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys did not have a timekeeper
No.
role.
Yeah.
That might be essential.
All right, on that note, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations on the adoption or reaffirmation of our district goals. That brings us to number 12. I'll turn it over to Ms. Meyer.
Yes.
Take it away.
In the spirit of what Dr. Campbell Vitel's been doing, I'll speak a little bit about this. I believe this is spoken about at a prior COW. Was it in October or September? About joining into this litigation. So with that, I'm going to bring forth motion 45 that the board adopt the insulin litigation resolution and attorney-client fee contract agreement as presented. Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Ms. Meyer and supported by Dr. Campbell Voitel. Any further questions or background?
Have we had comment about this at a board meeting?
We did talk about it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
We talked about it at a board meeting after we met at the COW.
Yes, okay,
Discussed it.
okay.
So $400,000 worth of insulin.
So, yes, so I did some preliminary data review, and as we had discussed at COW, it's not easy to get. But I was able to work with our third-party administrator who was able to get some data, but realized kind of mid-cycle that I don't think we're getting all the data. So that's why I kind of indicated in my memo to you that, further information will be requested. I reached out to Troom, and I'm working very closely with Peter Matusiak. I might have pronounced that wrong, but I think I have it. He's the Troon representative that's interfacing with Franz, who is the law firm that is handling the large-scale litigation. And Peter did suggest that they have different resources to pull that information. So it's very likely that it will be a little bit more information. And I remember in the COW meeting, we discussed, the insulin should have been right around average $35 per the cost is around $35. But I did see $1,000 and $1,500 costs on a 90-day supply. Over the last 4.5 years. So I'm seeing what was being presented to us through Franz.
And just for the public, this is not really insulin that we're giving children. In case you're wondering, it's because we're an insurer of our employees that this is being driven by. So this is 4.5 years of a medical cost that we've incurred and that is in dispute, and we're going to try to recover.
Yeah. We actually self-insure, so literally every additional dollar comes out of our own pocket versus versus, we don't really have a quote, third-party insurance company that we pay a X amount of dollars for that. We completely self-insure and we fund all costs for employees. And so therefore, this is important to us. The only other question I had was, these things tend to drag out over time. Any idea how long this is likely to drag out? I mean, I'm assuming this is much longer than a year timeframe.
Yep, 2 to 3.
2 to 3?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we do have a drug benefit management company.
We do.
And
it's,
so they're-
it's not our third-party administrator. I did verify that.
Okay.
Because our third-party administrator actually has an arm of a benefit manager, but they are not our benefit manager. This is a separate portion of their organization.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, and this isn't a representative class action in the same way that you might see. I got 50 cents from, where did we all, Blockbuster Video, or, I don't know, McDonald's once or whatever. We're really like in this litigation. It just gives that lawyer the ability to have really higher leverage, the more clients that they can get, the more exposure that they bring to the table, the bigger the sort of stick they hold to try to work out a resolution.
And I think about our employees that, while we're a self-funded plan, yes, we're paying for that, but our employees are paying. We have high deductible health plans. So our family plans right now, I mean, they're paying $4,000 towards the healthcare needs that they have before the insurance kicks in. I mean, some of our families, some of our employees, they might not have had to pay even a fraction of that if this insulin was priced correctly. So, I mean, I kind of have a commitment to that as well. It's upsetting to think that our employees are paying more.
All right, good questions. Thanks for the background there again. All those in, well.
Oh, it
you know,
looks
we
like
need
it
to
has
do
to be a
call.
roll
Yeah.
call vote.
All right, I'll take it. Meyer,
Yes.
Stewart, yes. Wilson,
Yes.
Prescott,
Yes.
Campbell Voitel,
Yes.
McIntyre,
Yes.
and Missouri.
Yes.
All right, the resolution passes. Thank you for all the work on that and the background. That brings us to number 13. Again, Ms. Meyer on our first reading.
Yes, I bring forth motion 25 that the board approve the following new and revised policies for first reading as presented. Policy 2144, cardiac emergency response plan. Policy 2151, media center materials and selection. Policy 2553, parental guardian objections. And policy 2153, adoption or amendment of bylaw and policies.
2 quick changes, and then I'll support, I think it's 1113. Is it 1113?
Oh.
Yeah. And then it's motion number 46.
Okay,
And
then.
policy 2153, right?
2153 and 1113.
Yeah.
All right, good catch. Let's see here. So we have a motion properly presented by Ms. Meyer and supported by Ms. Prescott. Any some background on this?
Yeah, does anyone have any questions or comments about it?
I do think the timing of this is really interesting, especially with the cardiac emergency response plan, because we reviewed this in our HR policy subcommittee, and then it was like the following week, there was a cardiac emergency at, was it the tennis state? It was some, like a tennis.
The boys tennis.
Boys tennis at a different school. It wasn't at our school, thank goodness. And they did not have the AEDs available. And luckily, we have reviewed that. And part of this policy is putting in place the number of AEDs that are supposed to be available and where, and who's trained to use them and how often they're trained. So I think this was a very timely review of this policy that was already in place. We already had this policy in place, but this was updating and reviewing. So I thought it was very timely that we had just reviewed this one.
Well, working backwards from the last one, procedurally, it seems that having this first reading, but that was never written in our bylaws, this is how you've been doing things. I say you because some of you have been doing it for many, many years. So this is just actually putting it in, adopting that as policy, that we have this first reading instead of just making the assumption that we are going to do that. And then the other two are updates as recommended by legal. One thing we all scored ourselves very highly on is making sure that we keep up to date on policy. And this is why, because we have Ms. Peck here who does a wonderful job making sure we're keeping up with all things legal and making sure that our policies are in the best interest of the district going forward. So does anyone have any specific questions regarding either of these?
Just full circle, we talked earlier, we had the committee of the whole meeting and we talked about transparent and good process. And so that double reading, if any parent tonight is like, well, I really care about media center materials, what are they doing? They can come on down to the next meeting if they didn't hear about it this time. So I think that's probably why when there's a policy change, it was built in to kind of be a slow, deliberate process.
Which is why it's good to have that.
And put it in writing.
Put it in writing that we're going to actually do the two readings.
These changes are, there's no major change to the media center material or selection policy or the objection policy. They're sort of more alignment of almost like grammar. So
Yeah.
Yes.
It was interesting to see the history, right? Like the media center materials and selection was first adopted in 1977, right? And then 10 years later, and then, so it's always interesting to see that history. And I'm glad to see, the last time we looked at this was 7 years ago. So good to revisit these types of things. Same thing with the board policy 2153, parent objection, same thing. And then keeping us up to, what our expectations are of ourselves as far as this new policy.
Right.
And for any public who are actually watching this, all of the policies are available on the website. You can look at any one of the policies. These will be up there once they're officially passed. Not there yet, but after final reading and approval, they'll go up there. So
I think they should be in the board book section though, shouldn't they?
yeah, but I don't know if our board book is a board book available yet to the public?
Yes,
it is.
Starting. When did we start? Last week? This week?
October 8th.
A couple weeks ago.
Couple weeks,
October
okay.
8th.
I know we said we we're going to do it. I just didn't know it was out there yet.
It's
See
out
the red
there.
line. So
Okay.
So Karen, you're sorry to cut off. Your point was that we did the two readings, but that wasn't required by the bylaws and policies previously.
No.
Oh, that's
No.
interesting. All right.
It was never required. It was just kind of tradition.
To process.
Yeah. And so I think
Alright.
it's really important that we do that.
Yeah.
And as we had that transparency conversation earlier, so that our community knows, and we don't take for granted the fact that like to your point, if someone wants to make comment on it or whatever, that we are just voting on the reading, we're not voting on the policies themselves yet.
Although the policy, the new policy 1113 does have an escape clause.
It does.
So if we are convinced that expediency is important,
Yeah.
we don't hold ourselves to two readings.
Yeah,
Like we can override by a majority of vote,
yeah.
majority vote.
All right. Sorry. Good commentary, good questions. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That brings us to, and so we'll see that in a couple weeks at our next regular morning board meeting.
Well, the second reading generally goes on consent unless directed otherwise.
Yeah, any opposition to that? Everybody good with that? Okay. That brings us to number 14. Any added agenda items, Ms. Irving? Anyone else? All right, that brings us to our second of two opportunities for public comment. Going once, going twice. That will close that period and bring us to number 16, questions, comments from board members. Do we have any? Anyone?
So we already talked about overbooked book club several times. Thank you, guys. And that is in the forum on Thursday. And the other thing I wanted to point out, the high school theater is doing The Play That Goes Wrong. November 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. And you can buy tickets online or at the door.
I wanted to raise a topic around parent camp. That's my understanding that Katie McPherson is going to be the keynote speaker. And she reached out to me and asked if the board would be interested in meeting with her and kind of understanding kind of her perspective on social media and kids. And she works with Bark Technologies. So maybe she could be a good resource for us as we're thinking about like, what else do we as a board want to focus on in terms of kids and technologies. And so just something to think about. You don't have to answer today, but I thought that was
What
a
would
really,
is it still going to be in February?
yes,
February
that's my,
1st is the schedule, so it would probably be right before or right after February 1st if you wanted to meet with her.
Okay.
so it would not be on a Tuesday, obviously, but,
She could probably do it on that Friday before or the Monday after.
I would also, go ahead. I just, there was a lot of, and I saw one comment in the board review. I definitely understand, because I don't have a lot of time left on the board, feedback, and I take the point about going to the public and talking about food and nutrition. There was a lot of interest from, I saw people that I know to be on very left and very right sides of the aisle in support of maybe getting some parents involved with the health advisory board, harnessing that energy, because there was some definite energy of people who wanted to help and give community feedback. So just lift that up.
Noted.
I saw an update, I don't know if everyone else saw from MASB, where they were, part of open meetings was they were going to they were going to vote on, and the MASB supports having open meetings for people who cannot attend from physical disability. I don't know if you saw that, but I was really encouraged by it. I don't know exactly how that would look or how that would work for us as a district, but the idea that it would be open to people who cannot get here, because right now I believe it's only military service where you don't
For the
have
board
to.
itself.
No, yes, but I think it was also related to people,
Public comment.
yeah. So I don't know how that
There's
would
an
work.
attorney general's opinion. So there's a recent attorney general's opinion about how you interpret the Open Meetings Act together with the ADA. And
That's probably what it was.
I think it arose out of masks and sensitivities or challenges people had to board service. If I can't physically attend, but the rest of you can, but I'm elected, right? Like, how do we balance that? And the Attorney General's opinion was the ADA is federal law. We need to be following that. And so there's an opinion about allowing people to attend remotely that I know.
board members or public comment or both?
Board members.
Okay.
And, that's usually, what's allowed, right? And I go back because I broke my leg one year and it was superintendent training. It was like a big thing to like miss superintendent training and only do it on the phone. This was before COVID, before we all knew that we could be flexible. But I mean, they let me do it, but it was like, I don't know, like if you're only on the phone, that's not really right. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see that kind of come into school boards.
Okay.
Totally good.
And if someone is elected to be a representative and they can't participate any other way.
I'll keep that on my radar as I get updates from Miller Johnson, our policy group. I'll keep that on my radar to see where that's coming through, because that would have to go into board policy.
And if I may have 30 seconds to thank Devin Slack, and I didn't see you earlier. I had mentioned how the PTSA meeting this morning at Silver Springs was really driven by a simple ask that you had of the folks who were there in September. So just quickly, if you didn't hear that, maybe go back. Okay, I didn't see you. Thank you.
I'll just add, there was a question, actually, I hope you don't mind me raising it, but the board at the library did send us a question.
Yes, thank you
Or
for
a
bringing that
letter
up.
within the last couple of weeks about the homecoming parade, and we're thinking about that. And I know Dr. Weber, you're going to visit with the library, the board, and come back to us. And
Yeah, they'd also sent a communication to the city at the same time with concerns that they had with the city. And I felt before we responded, their entire board signed it. And before I asked you to consider doing anything like that, I want to go and sit with them. So that meeting is 11:21. Any of y'all are welcome to come there as well. But and maybe from, I believe, the library entity, and you'll have to help me, but Jim, I think it's a township and city partnership.
Correct.
So being, for folks who know the township as well, it might be helpful if one of you could just show up who knows some of the history of that as well. Thank you.
Is it an evening meeting?
It's an evening meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was the 21st.
Oh, that's a Saturday.
Oh, no, 11.
No.
No,
Isn't it
November
Thursday?
21st
'Cause
is
I
a
thought the
Thursday.
lighted parade was the
It's the day before the lighting parade.
Okay.
So we tell
time. It brought to my mind is that we obviously, care about having a healthy relationship with our library board.
For sure.
Is that an opportunity for, I think I'm going to hold this for for a private conversation, but is that an opportunity for the board to have a liaison?
I was thinking the same thing, Kim. I was
How can I
thinking
be
the
on
same.
this board for 9 years and now you're gonna have a library?
I know.
Well,
Library.
well, what I can say is some of the things in that note,
Not running again.
some of the things in that note, I just feel much better being, you can have it. I have no interest in being the liaison, but just to really ask some questions about the why behind some of the statements that were made, frankly. We have been exceptional partners.
Yeah.
From Megan and I, our offices face the parking lot. The parking lot here at OBS is used
Well, that's what
all day by folks who patronize the library. The paving that finance went ahead and said, that was something that
Even used to be a divider.
legally we didn't have to do that, but we did.
So there had been some,
Public lot.
in the past, there have been maybe some less than great relationships over the parking lot and funding and people spreading over into the schools. And so it may not have always been perfect.
Can you
There's
say
always
out
All right,
loud
well, I'll
what
catch
it
up
is?
with you later.
They
Right.
own that lot?
Noted.
Or we own it? Because that surprised me. That was years ago that I learned this. Do
There's
they
also-
own that?
We own all of it, right? But we
own
lease
it,
it.
right?
We own all of it. But we lease
Lease it to
that,
them
for $1, which
$1,
includes the
right?
parking lot. And when with that lease, it's their responsibility, the community, the library, to maintain that. And our contract basically says that if at some point in time they decide to buy that, we will take all of their investments into account with whatever the fair market value is. And so, people have complained and we said, I don't know, I think having a building for $1 is a pretty good deal to me.
The parking lot.
The whole community
Everything.
center too,
Community
Community center. but I'm talking
and the
about
parking lot,
But not the library building.
not the library building.
But doesn't the community center also have some jurisdiction over that parking lot? It's library and community center and it's.
Yeah,
not a
and so
parking lot.
they've come back to us and they wanted us to fund some things and we said, that's between the community center, which is the township and the city, and the library. You guys want to do that? You want to fund it? Knock yourself out. We gave you $1 lease.
That's
The other piece of it, isn't there a public parking sign that directs
Yeah,
people to that
there
parking
is.
lot?
It says
Yeah.
public parking.
Well, I do want to just say, I think the gist of it was just that there was a lack of communication one way or another, and they were having their own event and.
That was the gist of it, and I spoke with the librarian that afternoon, even though the street had been closed for a week with signs on it from the city. And I personally went down and talked to the police officer down at the end of the block on that day because Miss Peck and I and Mr. Boffin, we were all here. And we were out mingling with the folks in the parking lot. But I talked to the officer and I said, if anyone, is going to the library for anything, please let them through and they can park right here if they'd like to, because that was the access point there. So that's why I give the benefit of the doubt. I want to go listen and interact before we were to respond in any way, but just know that there are some things in there that surprised me. And I'll leave it at that and I'll talk to Jim
I
later.
just think y'all need to remember that we own part of that parking lot because we own Fog Street, we own some rent. Don't lose track of the property.
Yeah.
Hard to remember.
We own stuff that
We
a lot
got
of people
Devin,
don't
he's
know
gonna know
anymore.
all these things. You have a map, right?
He's not going to lose track.
Good.
Devin's got it.
There's some weird pieces of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? The and then the rec center lease, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Okay.
She's speaking your language.
All right, well, that will bring us to our closed session motion. Ms. McIntyre,
Okay, oops,
please.
sorry, I already closed my thing. let me bring it up. Okay. I'd like to bring forth motion 47 that the board convene in closed session pursuant to Public Act 267 of the Open Meetings Act under 8H, written opinion of legal counsel.
Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Mr. Mazurek. It will require a roll call vote. Ms. Stewart, please.
All right, Stewart, yes. Wilson.
Yes.
Prescott.
Yes.
Campbell Boytel.
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Mazurek.
Yes.
And Meyer.
Yes.
All right, so we will be convening to closed session here very shortly. For folks here in the audience, I don't think that we will be coming back for any substantive conversation or deliberations or discussion after that, but there's always the chance. But we will be coming back to formally adjourn the meeting. When that will be, I don't know. So with that, I will move us to closed session at 8:39.
President Wilson, I offer that you perhaps we take 10 just to
Sure.
get ourselves situated.
Is that good, everybody? Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's this